Sam Altman was the one that said it. There will be, in the next 10 years, a solo founder with nobody on his team other than AI that builds $1 billion business.
One of the most challenging apps that I built that was also very exciting to build was Zoneboot.
What would you tell the 18 to 22-year-old listening to this? Should they go and just start their own business? Should they go into startups in Silicon Valley and learn on somebody else's dollar?
My vision is just to have 1 million people learn how to code and have more impact in other people's life and in their own life.
The one thing that I've noticed interviewing 80 plus amazing founders is welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Wealth podcast. I'm your host, Andres Sanchez, and today I am joined by Richardson Dackem. Richardson is building amazing applications, working with founders, making it easier and more realistic for people to go and build apps for their brands, for their businesses, or to go and like a SaaS platform, if I'm thinking about that right. So I think we're going to have a really interesting conversation here, especially for all the business owners out there. Make sure you're listening and understanding what Richardson offers, because there's always the potential to have something come from this that revolutionizes your business. So Richardson, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Yeah, happy to be here.
I want to just start by giving people a little bit of a high level on who you are. Give us the elevator pitch on who Richardson is.
Sure. So I started my career as a developer, and then self-taught, taught myself how to code, and then got into the space. And then within a year, I went from junior to senior, and then I started working with a large organization. Essentially, I was working on an app called Sportsnet, where I was helping build the backend for it. So I helped build essentially a lot of SaaS, so applications. I worked with sport companies and so on. So most of my career has been in the center of building application, essentially. And through my career, because I was also building products, I've also learned how to design, I can do the front end and the back end. So I understand the entire scope of the product development, because I've been, all above, below, and beyond. And also with a heart of an entrepreneur, I always wanted to build my own startup. So I've also built my own startup on the side. So he introduced me to the business side of it, marketing, sales, and so on.
And are you currently all in on that startup, or are you working a full-time job as a developer and then building this on the side?
So I'm essentially doing everything on the side, because for the past 14 years, I've had my own company where I was essentially a contractor building app for people.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 years ago, I joined a Silicon Valley startup, which was a unicorn, just full-time. So they convinced me to join full-time, and then I worked on it for about a year or so. And while I was on the job, I was missing the idea of running my own service business and then building my own startup. And I just wanted to get back to that kind of challenge. And essentially I started Collaberencode, which is my current startup. And then I'm currently doing it mostly full-time, but I'm also available for gigs with my previous clients, essentially if they need help with development and stuff like that.
Okay, awesome. How was it working at that unicorn? Because that's always fun getting to work at some of these big startups.
It was very interesting. Things in unicorn works really, really fast. So there's a lot of demands. They went from, I think, 100 to 500 people by the time I joined. So it grew extremely fast. So there's a lot of demand for new features. You need to build those features extremely fast. There's in that particular one, there were a low tolerance for errors. So I know in Silicon Valley, there's a mantra of, break things and move fast. But in that specific environment, it wasn't really possible, because the tool that we were essentially building was in the solar space. So it was helping people, estimate solar to see if solar is good for them. And essentially, if you had a mistake there, you can mess up someone's budget. And so that was highly intense. So in comparison to previous companies where I worked at, the notion of making sure that nothing's break was at a much higher scale.
So you've been in this development world for a while now. A lot of our audience is that 18 to 25-year-old young hustler. What would you tell the 18 to 22-year-old listening to this that's learning how to code? Should they go and just start their own business? Should they go into startups in Silicon Valley and learn on somebody else's dollar? What's your opinion on that?
I believe that when you want to work for someone, you always have to think about two things. Either you want to get paid or you want to learn. That has been my philosophy learning from the beginning. I wanted to learn. So I figured that if I could work for someone that would pay me to learn, and essentially I could take those skills and apply that on my own startup. So I would say I really believe in learning by doing. So I would recommend that maybe if you want to get started right away, especially in an age where we have generative AI, you can get started in an application by just generating the code for it and learning how to understand it along the way. All you need is just some foundational knowledge so that you can then apply what you currently know in order to better understand the code itself. So I would say learn by doing. Don't waste too much time on the theory. Like just try to learn to actually do things. I think people sometimes read too many books, and then they are paralyzed to actually act. And I think it's much more important if you actually take action and try to execute on your vision. And then you might learn even much faster that way, because then you'll face, challenges, obstacles, make mistakes, but then you learn from those mistakes and you'll build up your experience.
Yeah, I think analysis paralysis is one of the biggest issues with younger entrepreneurs. And I say that from that being an issue that I've faced all of my career trying to build businesses. It's so easy to start reading these books, start reading these blogs, these newsletters, and be obsessed with learning about how to do it. But if you're not actually doing anything, you're actually kind of moving backwards, in my opinion. So I'm a big advocate for fail fast. Just go out there and try and shoot your shot. I think the one thing that I've noticed interviewing 80 plus amazing founders is good founders, successful founders take so many shots, like just take 30 more shots than the average person does. And that's why they're successful. The average person takes 2-3 shots, fails, and are like, well, this isn't for me. That founder that built the $100 million business failed 28 times. And on the 29th time, they got a win and it became the $100 million win.
Yes.
So I couldn't agree with you more on like, get out there. And I think it's also important to highlight what you said, like understand what you want to get out of working with somebody. Is it going to be a financial thing? Do I want to go be a developer at Google and have a cushy job and make $300,000 a year, but not be challenged? Or do I want to go and make $50,000 a year at the new startup and be pushed to my limit and be around other developers that I can learn from? Both are valid, but you need to know what you want to get from that first or second job.
Yes, and then I've been in this position many times where I had to choose between a high-paying job and a job where I would actually learn a skill. And oftentimes I've always choose the one where I will learn the skill, because my long-term vision has always been to build my own businesses. So I've always seen doing contract work or working for a company as a place for me to learn and then grow beyond. So I would say that yes, heavily, like, definitely make sure to decide whether you want to learn, get paid, or you want to.
So talking about what you've built now through your career, what is one of your favorite applications that you've ever had the chance to build?
Yes, that's a good question. It's funny because also whenever I interview for a company, they always ask me what's the most challenging companies I've built, and it's funny enough, it's always the one I built on the side. It's never the one that I built for clients.
Yeah.
So one of the most challenging app that I built that was also like very exciting to build was ZoneGoat. And essentially it was a tool that allowed people to automatically detect if their property is within the right zoning. So it was in prop tech. That's not a field that I had any experience in. I essentially got into the space because I had a friend at the time that wanted to solve that problem for himself, because he wanted to find property in I think it was the cannabis space, but he couldn't find any property at the time. So he approached me, he's like, hey, I believe you could probably find a solution to build an algorithm that allow me to essentially buy a property that is within the right zone. And he told me that he's talked to hundreds of people. No one can figure out how to do it. And essentially the way how municipalities are doing it right now is you have to go to the municipality, tell them what location you're interested in, and they might send someone to go there manually and start checking the zoning regulation. So I
Wow.
couldn't believe how slow the process was. So diving into it was fascinating because I not only learned about real estate, I learned about how municipalities works. I learned about how, essentially to use maps in a very efficient and mathematical way. Like, because the curvature of a map, uh, projection might change between maps, different type of maps. So all this knowledge I had to learn in order to essentially build that solution. And yeah, I thought that was a very interesting problem because there were so many different challenges that I had to figure out in order to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to just think of maybe what you could have said when I asked that question, or what I would have never guessed a zoning app. And it is pretty hilarious that they still manually send somebody out there to go and look at it, approve
Yeah.
it. And so what was that app successful? Like, was your buddy able to use it and commercialize it, or was it just something for personal use?
So as soon as we made the prototype, he was actually able to find 5 properties that match the local zoning, send it to his agent, and that's kind of how they were able to actually buy the property. The entire
Wow.
business started from that. And so when we started, so he ended up becoming a business partner in the beginning. He was also running his own business on the side, but he wanted to be a part owner. And when we started making 5 months per user. So our first user actually paid us $500 to use the tool per month. But what we quickly realized that we had a really high churn. So we needed to figure out how to improve the product and better understand the problem. Essentially, when I built the MVP, that was for that one customer, right? My friend became my business partner. But then as we dive deeper into it, we needed to do customer development and ask people questions. So I ended up doing over 500 outreach to different people in the space to figure out like what was the real problem and the real pain point. And through that, the product has evolved. So we got to a couple of business users, but what I found out in the space is that in B2B, it's a much, I guess, it's not as fast to grow in that space because it's much slower because the sales cycle is a bit longer when you're
Yeah.
talking to companies. And I found that very, very challenging in that space. And then we quickly realized that the solution was more like a vitamin than a painkiller. So people
Mm-hmm.
weren't desperate for the solution.
Yep.
It was more like a good to have. But interestingly enough, when we would talk to them, it sounded like a painkiller. But when
Mm.
it was time to actually use the tool, we realized through user analytics and behavior that they saw it more as a vitamin.
Yeah. I like that. It's more of a vitamin than a painkiller. That's a good one.
Mhm.
I'm gonna steal that one. So I'm just curious, how many apps have you built, or how many, you can count a SaaS platform as an app too, but how many
Mhm.
apps do you think that you've built over your career?
I think over 30 or 40 because I have like
Wow.
at least 30 domain in my GoDaddy account. And I started building app when I was 12. It's actually like, well, I started not apps, but I started building businesses when I was 12. Uh,
Oh, wow. Can we
yeah,
talk about that?
yeah,
Like,
sure.
well, yeah. Well, what did the 12-year-old businessman look like?
So essentially, when I was a kid, I was really into, well, I'm still are, but I was really into Japanese anime and Japanese
Okay.
culture in general.
I love
And
anime.
yeah, that's great.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's growing more and more. I think our generation
Yep.
is really big into it. So I was really into that. And then at the time, there weren't a lot of content that were translated in French. So we were like essentially like downloading anime in English with English subtitle, but Japanese voices. And so I wanted to create a small like group of people that could actually translate Japanese anime into French. So I started it with my brother. At the time, we're doing it on this thing called IRC. Like
Mhm.
think about it like the old school Discord or
Yeah.
you know the Discord of the time that a lot of like people that were into like hacking or coding were into. And then a lot of fan sub community. So fan sub are fan translating Japanese anime into different languages. So a lot of fan sub community were living on IRC because you needed essentially to host all the content on it as well into servers. So I built this entire framework with my brother, and we end up having about 30 members working for it. So we have
Wow.
like translator, we had people that were the raw hunter that would get the raw file and then translate it. We have people called Cara Maker. They were essentially animating the subtitle characters in the video. And so it ended up growing really, really fast. And then what I realized at the time that it was an entire business. The only thing is we weren't making money. We're doing things for fun, for free. But that was kind of like the spark that made me realize that maybe I should actually do an actual business. Because at the time, I think I was the youngest people in that. I was 12, and the second youngest person in it was my brother, was a 14 at the time, and the next person was 18, and the oldest person was 27. But none
Wow.
of them knew our age, so
Yeah.
I had no idea that I was leading this entire thing. I was a 12-year-old, in Senegal at the time where I used to live, building this whole thing.
That's amazing. Like, how does a 12 and a 14-year-old build that? That's so impressive to me.
So yeah, that was a fun experience that we worked on, and then we ended up making over 1,000 translation, and we're focusing on a very niche thing. And I think at the time we're maybe on the top 5 biggest fan sub in France. So for this.
That is so cool. Did you guys ever figure out how to have it make money, or it kind of just fizzled out?
No, so what happened is around that same time, so a couple of things happened. So when I started it initially, we were like 10 to 15, then I merged with another fan sub, we became 30. And then after that, around that time, fan sub became highly illegal. So like Japanese studios started really like, reaching out to fan sub and asking them to stop translating the content because they wanted to, partnership with other network. So around that time, we realized that, okay, now this is becoming something illegal. So we have the option to either turn that into a real thing or just move on. And so my initial idea, are you familiar with Crunchyroll?
Yep. Yeah, I have a Crunchyroll account.
Okay, so at the time, I had the idea to create something like Crunchyroll. And so
That
this
would
is
have
what
been
I wanted
good.
to build. And the thing is, our fan sub just happened to be living on the server of this guy called Magical Chicks. And so Magical Chick was his nickname, but I'll soon explain what it was actually. So I reached out to him and I asked him, hey, do you want to, you have a lot of experience building apps and building tools. Would you be interested to help me build a platform where people can stream anime and so that we can partner with Japanese studio? And at the time, he was really interested. And I think we used to call it Yata Japan. That was the name of the thing. But you have to think about it. It was like way before Crunchyroll.
Yeah.
And so Magical Chicks actually end up being. Are you familiar with MCGox?
No.
So in crypto, MCGox was the first essentially crypto platform where you could essentially buy token. It was the first major one, and then it got hacked and they lost a lot of money of customer and then he ended up crashing. So the founder of MCGox was Magical Chicks. That was his nickname on social network, but his real name is Rob. But at the time, I had no idea. It was just someone online that I've never met. We're talking remotely. Then you fast forward to now, to 2012. This guy ended up becoming this really big guy in crypto that I think essentially was one of the first guys to build a major platform that was selling Bitcoin in the world. And now I think he's a billionaire. Like he got into a lot of trouble when his platform crashed. But that's pretty much what happened like back then.
Wow, that's crazy. I think it's I think it's really cool that you had that ambition and drive at such a young age. And then two, it's just a testament to like we're growing up in such a lucky time in life where if you know how to use the internet to your advantage, you have almost endless possibilities. I mean, you were 13, 14 years old, networking with a future billionaire, potentially just shooting the shit around building what is now one of the biggest anime platforms. You had that idea early on. And it's funny, it's like the same thing. My dad has a similar story where he has a really good friend that owned 4 restaurants in a college town that were very popular. And this is like 15 plus years ago, told him, hey, you should have an app that people can go and buy the food, and then you have third-party drivers go and deliver it. You don't pay the delivery drivers. They just get a cut of the order. He literally was like trying to get him to start Uber Eats in the college town. And then it ends up actually turning into now this whole massive thing. But it's It's crazy, man. It's these like little moments where you have these ideas and sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't, but it led you to this amazing career that you've had now.
But it's interesting because one of the things that this thing made me realize is that it really, like, execution is literally everything. You can have like the best idea you want, but if you don't execute on it, it's never going to become anything, right? So,
Yep.
and at the time, like, I literally had zero execution skills. I had the idea. I mean, I had done my little concept thing, but the execution skill in terms of like app development was another, like, completely different beast that I wasn't prepared for at the time.
Yeah, I don't think anybody will hold you to that at 13, not having like top operator execution skills. Uh, but now, so now that's early you, and you're now building. Obviously, you've had this successful career here. What I want to go and focus now on your platform, on what you're doing in your businesses right now. Give me a little bit of a background on what it looks like to work with you on your app, on an application.
Okay, sure. So essentially, are we talking about the coding platform or my agency?
Yeah, so like your agency. Like if I said, you know what, I'm listening to this call right now, my business could use an application like that zoning app or
Mhm.
something like a niche app. What would it look like to go and work with you?
Okay. So essentially, in the past, I used to do more traditional development where, someone needed a Ruby on Rails developer that could build them an app. And so essentially, because I'm a senior developer and I have a lot of experience through various skills, various technologies, and I'm a full stack, so I can do front end and back end. That was the main reason company were coming to me. They wanted a full stack developer that had a lot of experience and that could also lead a team when needed to help them build something quickly. So most of my clients were actually coming to me when they had very tight deadline. Let's say, for example, the Soho group needed to launch an app, and then so I got uh, brought into the project by another company that got the contract. But
Hmm.
my job was to become the team lead that essentially helped them meet the deadline within like 3 to 4 months or something like that. So that
Yeah.
was what most companies used to hire me for. But now,
By the way, I just used the Soho app today to book my time for tomorrow. I go to the one in Miami Beach,
oh
and
wow, very good.
I just used that app today.
So yeah, so I work on the back end of Soho Works and then some of the
Yeah.
back end of Soho House,
Okay.
essentially.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
I just became a member.
that's
I'm still understanding the whole community and things.
that's awesome. I was wondering if they were gonna give us like membership, but they didn't give us any membership.
Well, it took me 2.5 years. Like
Yeah.
I forgot. I applied 2.5 years ago and I was like, oh, this would be cool. I just didn't get any answer. And then like 3 weeks ago, I got an email, congratulations. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
I forgot I even did this. But that's cool that now that you had your hands on some of that.
Yes, that was a fun project. So essentially, yeah, so they will approach me for this kind of projects, but like with generative AI, I started realizing that we need something new because the developing landscape is changing. And if someone can just generate an entire app from the click of a button, then we need a new way for developer to actually provide services. So now I have shifted the service company essentially to build things faster for
Mm.
customer. So by utilizing the power of AI with a developer supervising it. So essentially I'm using tool like cursor.sh where I essentially work with AI to generate code. But at the same time, I do the entire pre-planning and outline as a developer. So I can really make things very specific. And so generate the code extremely fast, make sure that it's up to spec, that that is built with tests in mind, and then that it meet my client's goal. So that's what I'm doing now. So I'm essentially shifted from the traditional development cycle to now incorporating AI into the thing, the mix.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue. I was curious, like obviously AI is very disruptive, uh, especially in the tech space.
Mhm.
Now I literally see I've interviewed people that don't know how to code or don't know
Yes.
a thing about code and have built SaaS platforms that they have sold for millions of dollars. From a developer standpoint, one, is it a little bit concerning from your side for the future? Or is it kind of like, hey, if you're not in tune and you're not leveraging it, good luck.
Mhm.
But now I'm a 10x full stack developer and you're a 1x full stack developer because you can't utilize it.
That's a great question. This is something I've thought about deeply, especially with my platform that teaches people how to code, because you start asking yourself, if someone can generate the code, what's the point of learning it, right? So, but then I think first of all, there will still be critical thinking skill will still be needed, and knowing how to code give you that critical thinking. But also as a developer, I think that even though people can generate code, there's a rule in AI that is, especially in generative AI, that is garbage in, garbage out. So the quality of input determines the quality of the output. So if you are someone with a lot of experience writing a prompt about something specific, you're going to have a much better output than someone that has absolutely zero experience in it. So that's something that I've realized that essentially made me realize that it's not going to be necessarily kill the job for developer. And actually, I think 70% of developers are not afraid to lose their job right now, based on the Stack Overflow statistic on that. So, but I think that people that don't utilize it are more at risk of losing it, because where the world is going to evolve is we're going to have AI doing the low quality works, technically doing the technical things at a low level. And you're going to have a developer at a high level thinking about how to implement things. Some companies might have high specific needs that they might still need a developer in order to determine the specific need and use AI. And some companies might have low specific need where they could just use AI to generate the code that they need. But AI is still not perfect. So it's going to get better. But right now, it still makes mistakes. So if you just generate code, you don't really know what's happening. You might have a bug and not even be aware of it. Or especially if you don't use things like testing, which are the kind of thing that a developer will usually think about using, like making sure that there's tests and make sure that the app is functioning as expected. So I think that the developer skill will still be needed, but it's true, it's scary. Then a lot of companies might reduce their workforce. Maybe they might need less junior developer, or the reverse will happen where companies don't want to spend more money on more expensive developer, and they want to have junior developer that can use AI and do the work of a senior developer. So you're going to have two different type of company doing deciding between these two. So I don't know exactly where this is going to land, but definitely we might see less senior developer getting hired, or more less junior developer getting hired, until people realize that no, actually we need developer in order to build those things. And I think that until we reach AGI, I think that we'll still need developer to code.
And because I'm asking this question selfishly, as somebody who uses like ChatGPT and Gemini for tons of stuff, when you say it's all about the way that you prompt on these AIs, what advice or what tips could you give when it comes to prompting stuff? Because I am notorious for writing the lowest quality prompt ever and then being upset because the actual content is not good. So what advice could you give to that?
It's funny. It's kind of like when people ask the AI, write me a joke, and then the AI write a joke, and they're like, oh, the joke is bad.
Yeah.
It's because it's bad input, right? So you essentially want to give it enough context in order to help you with your answer. So you can give him context by, for example, giving it a role. You're saying you are a comedian that specializes in this type of jokes. You're very familiar in this kind of joke strategies, or I don't know how you will call it. So you give him enough context so he knows exactly what rules they need to follow in order to give you the answer. And so there's other skills that you need to know, like, for example, making sure to format things correctly. I believe platform like OpenAI have a lot of resources for teaching people how to write good prompt. And actually, most generative AI sites, if you look at the documentation, they tell you exactly this is how you're supposed to write prompt. And I think that would be a good place to start for your audience if they want to learn how to write better prompts. Just read the documentation on those platforms like ChatGPT, Claude, and then that would be a good place to start. But also when you're giving instruction, think about step by step. You don't want to have a huge paragraph that just ask it to do different things in one single prompt, because those large language models are good at doing one thing. So it's better to give it one instruction and get an answer and then build upon that instruction, rather than just throwing him everything or throwing her, depending on how you want to call it, So
Okay.
I would say start with platform that have prompt engineering instructions. I think deep learning, the company,
Hmm.
Also has a prompt engineering course. I took that one. It's a really good one.
Okay.
Like, yeah, investing in prompt engineering, I think, is a skill of the future. So I would highly recommend to take some time doing that.
Yeah, no, I agree too. Like, I think AI is gonna stick its nose in all of these different areas of business, and it eventually will just come down to like the 40% that don't acknowledge it, think it's not going to be relevant, will just fall off. The other 40% or 50% that think it's good and play around with it will have some success. And then that 10% that realizes like, hey, if
Yeah,
I can leverage this to the max, I am now way better than any of my peers, and I am way more valuable than any of my peers, will be the people that see the most success. And I think if you just play around with these tools, you could see like I have meetings and different things, and like the now ChatGPT as the voice. I had a
hmm
big interview with a big tech company, and I wanted to better understand their product before I got in the interview. So I spent 45 minutes talking back and forward with the Chat GPT advanced voice and just asking it question after question about who uses it, who buys it, why do people buy it, why
hmm
would they use it, what job titles use it inside of customers. And by the end of it, I knew everything about this product in 45 minutes of literally just talking with the AI. That right there was a turning point for me where I was like, you can almost figure out anything now with a low barrier to entry.
very true. I like to say that saying I don't know in today's time is obsolete, because
Yeah,
if you just search it, you'll find the answer
you'll find it.
your question. And also, like, AI today is like it's a coach, your mentor, and your assistant. So
Mhm.
so you can literally like ask a question about everything. If you want to be coached about something, it can help you with it. If you need an assistant to help you with stuff, it can help you as well. And then the way the industry is moving now, I think ChatGPT was just the beginning. Now we're going into
Yeah.
agentic framework, like agents. And that's actually the focus of GPT now, right? So for, I didn't mention it, but for example, for our Encode, the only way I can compete with companies like Code Academy and Pluralsight, that all have been around for like the past 10 years, is by utilizing AI. And the way I've done it is that my entire workforce is not, they're not people, it's just a company of one, and
Yeah.
it's a workforce of AI. So essentially, I have multiple agents that help me do the work that I need, and I communicate with them the same way I would communicate with an employee. So I go on my Slack, give it an instruction, and then those AI work individually to actually help me produce the work that I need for the platform. So this is the level of advancement where we're moving into agents, right? So it's going to be much more complex and interesting.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Like we are, like I said earlier, we're so fortunate. Like for me with this show, we get off this episode right now, and Riverside, where we're recording, will go and use an AI agent and edit our episode for me immediately. They will go ahead and remove all the buffer moments, move us around, put different angles of our faces on there so it looks like a fully edited episode. After that, I will submit this episode to an AI tool that I use that will rip the transcript, will write me titles, give me descriptions, write me blog posts, go ahead and give me anything I would want from this episode. We'll get it done immediately. And then from there, I use this and AI will then create me clips from this episode. It will find the best moments and we'll go and clip it and create it. And essentially now, as a solo founder, I have been able to edit, extract, and create 30 pieces of content off of one video we made here within an hour of the episode being over. Like that would have taken me days, and I would have had to hire video editors. I would have had, and I don't. And I've now been in this for almost 2 years. A year and a half ago, I had to do that. Like there was still AI options, but it wasn't good. You could tell the quality was low. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, I do not have to hire anybody if I don't want to. The only thing that AI hasn't figured out how to do perfectly is thumbnails. Like I still have to hire thumbnail editors, but everything else in my line of work here, building a newsletter, building social
Oh,
medias, and launching and growing this podcast, AI does the whole thing for me.
There's a good thumbnail thing. Is there's a couple platforms now that can do the thumbnail part.
All right,
Um,
we need to talk about that because
yeah,
thumbnails are the biggest pain in my ass.
yeah. The way they do it, they analyze your face. They've analyzed like a bunch of old thumbnail style, and essentially you just upload a couple of pictures of yourself, and after that you just use a prompt, and it just generates a thumbnail for you in the style that you want.
Okay, I need you
Yeah.
to, I need that because I've hired about 1 million thumbnail editors, and for some reason, it's the most annoying part.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like we've really gone on a riff here on this AI because I just think it's so interesting. And I think people listening now also, like all these business owners, if you are not using AI, oh, and the other thing I mentioned, because you said the agents, I need
Yes.
to go and book guests. I have
Yeah.
agents DMing people all day long for me. Like
That's really
I am not the one DMing people to come out on my show.
normal.
Agents are sitting on my back end of my business and are shooting off DMs to guests. And I put the criteria, follower count, title, information. And it's in like, I have booked 30 guests in the last 10 days alone, and
Yeah.
I have not DM'd one of them. It blows my mind, like where we're headed in this, like, and I think Sam Altman was the one that said it. Like, there will be in the next 10 years a solo founder with nobody on his team other than AI that builds $1 billion business.
There will be. I believe this is the actually ultimate vision because ChatGPT has multiple levels right now, right? I think level 2 was reasoning. We just crossed reasoning. Level 3 is agentic framework. So they're focusing on this right now. And after that, it's going to be level 4, which is innovation. So the AI having the capacity and ability to innovate. And level 5 is organization. So essentially, you have an AI that can work like an entire organization. So you can give them an objective, tell me a startup that do X, Y, Z, and it can innovate and do things and so on and so on. Which is actually when we will start to see, for example, like cure for various diseases happening. Because now you can give tasks to a bunch of agents to figure out how to innovate a solution to cure specific disease and so on. So this is where they're heading with on their roadmap.
It's crazy. It is so crazy. I want to also highlight you. We've gone on a riff here. I want to highlight more your writing. So you write a lot. You've got a few different Substacks that you write. Talk a little bit about what you're writing there and what your goals are with that.
Okay, so it's actually I started writing because I wanted to think more deeply about different things, different issues, especially in SaaS. So one of my first newsletter is was essentially about writing about things that I've learned in the SaaS space, what works, what doesn't when you're building an app. And then I have another newsletter, Code and Capital, where I do more like long writing, where I go more deeper into a topic. And it's funny enough, this one is the one that has the most subscriber. But I had subscriber in it before I even started writing because I just had like a vision of what it's going to be about, and I started getting people paying for the newsletter. So it just motivated me to write even more because I had paid customer before I even launched this one. And that one is essentially my latest piece was about, the future of AI for for the web development. And prior to that, I was writing a lot of Medium. So I have a lot of my writing on medium.com, where I not only wrote about my space as a developer, but also when I used to run my crypto company, I was writing to investor because I had a couple like angel investor involved in that project. And I just wanted to write publicly about how the company is doing, what we've done and so on. So usually I use writing as a way to think about problem and express what I think where the world is going. So I really like to write about trend. And I don't know if you noticed, but on Twitter, I usually when I do a long thread, it's usually about trend. So I made one about Meta maybe 2 to 3 years ago before they introduced the new glasses.
Yeah.
So I like to do long thread about specific topic, and I talk about where the trend is heading.
That's cool because when you're right, you can go back and you have receipts for it, which is very, very cool.
Yeah.
As we come here to the end of the episode, I know we've got that question loaded that everybody gets, but I want to give you the chance here to highlight anything that maybe we didn't get a chance to cover, anything about what you're building, anything you wanted to shout out. Feel free to take it.
So essentially, the coding platform that I'm building is Collaberencode, and my goal here is to help people learn how to code on their own schedule by spending as little as possible. So, for example, if you only have 1 hour a day to code, the courses in the platform will reorganize in order to fit your specific schedule. So if you have 2 hours, we'll reorganize all the courses just to fit that. So it's really designed to help people learn how to code at their own time. And I believe that even with AI coming, in a circle, and with more generative AI coming, that people will still need to think more critically about things, and then learning how to code help people think critically. And so I think it's a skill of today and a skill of the future. So my vision is just to have 1 million people learn how to code and have more impact in other people's life and in their own life. Because when you can code, and I see it as a superpower, is that you can actually create value. And you can create value out of nothing, and sometimes without even capital, just sitting on your computer, solving problem and delivering value. And I think that if a lot of people have this ability, there'll be a lot more change in the world. So that's why I wanted to share.
That's amazing. And again, all of that will be all of your links will be in the description below, because I want anybody listening here that is interested to go and check that out. We're here at the end. The question is, what would you go back and tell your 18-year-old self with everything you know now?
Wow. So I think I would want my 18-year-old self to think that about, well, first of all, I wish my 18-year-old self had YouTube or had AI. That would be much easier. So I think I would want to give it in the context of today's time. I would say, execute first, learn along the way, and also read, but don't just read to to just count how many books you've read, but actually read to really master and understand the book you're reading. Because if you're just reading a book just to say, oh, I read it, then you're not really going to be able to apply the lesson of that book. Once you finish your book and you can actually apply the lesson from that book, this is when you've truly read. So I would say spend more time reading to understand rather than reading to check.
That's awesome. I want anybody here as well to be able to connect with you on social media. What social media is where you're most available and where people should potentially reach out to you?
Sounds good. So I'm at Richardson DX almost on every single social media. Very easy to reach on Twitter. I just started this new YouTube where I talk about SaaS called Richardson on SaaS. And yeah, so you can find me at Rich Dackem on Instagram, Richardson on SaaS on YouTube, but you can literally find me with Richardson DX on almost every single platform.
Awesome. Yeah. Richardson, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for entertaining me and letting me ask a bunch of basic AI questions and providing all this value. I really appreciate it. And I hope that you and your journey continue to succeed. I hope that we could be a partner and help along that way to get those 1 million people on the platform, learn how to code. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to share with our audience.
Yeah, thanks, Andres. I hope we do that again. That was cool.